We have a returning guest, Mr. Victor Mojica, joining us out of San Jose, California. Victor, good afternoon, sir. How are you today?
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for having me on your show. That was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Likewise, my friend. Well, Victor, so what we're going to do, we're going to kick things off and pretend that we've never had you on this show before. So, what we're going to do is we're going to start from square one and we're going to pretend that we don't know anything about you. So, without further ado, if you wouldn't mind, Victor, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and give us some background on who Victor Mojica really is?
Well, I've been in the financial business for about 40 plus years now, learning a lot of different aspects of the industry, from the security side, from real estate side, tax planning side, insurance side. So each level that I've taken is I keep learning more and more, but now I'm more specialized in a very unique area that basically I just become a good listener to help people out. And when I find a good solution for them, and that's where what I do, and that's where I get most of my resources to help people out with my vast knowledge in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, vast knowledge is an understatement. And we're going to do a deep dive into that vast knowledge in your background before we get to the more funner questions. But in that last show that we had, there were a lot of things that I learned and discovered about you that I was not aware of. And since then, doing more research on this whole Victor Mojica guy, um, and I've got a nice fun way to end today's show, in sizing you right up with another gentleman that we call the most interesting man in the world. Hold that thought. So, so we want to find out a little bit more about the most interesting man in San Jose, California. Now, in a couple of sites that I have found some background on you, one of those, it states Victor has decades of experience in tax planning and financial planning. He earned a business degree from Chico State University in California, USA. He is the first generation immigrant from Mexico who became a U.S. citizen in 1976. So let's stop there. Victor, what was your age when you became a U.S. citizen?
I was just out of high school, about 18 years old.
Okay. And how old were you when you got your degree from Chico State?
Oh, that must have been about late 70s, early 80s. I just been so long that I can't remember.
Probably about 4 years after the fact, somewhere in that neighborhood, 4 or 5.
Yeah, it was the late 70s, early 80s.
Okay.
Because then I got married in 1984, so that was before that. So
Okay. And your degree is in business. So
that's
tell me how this transition, a little bit about those early years, if you can remember that far back, on, when you graduated from business to how you got started in financial services.
well, I started a business with a friend of mine that his family had a lot of different restaurants. So he wanted me to go in and branch out and set up another restaurant. And so with my business knowledge and his cooking knowledge, I decided, well, let's try it out. And it went pretty good, but he was doing the cooking and I was managing everything else and making it grow. But the problem is then his dad opened up another restaurant. So then all of a sudden he coerced him just to leave me out of the blue. Then I'm stuck with the restaurant managing it, not knowing how to cook because my mom did all the cooking when I was growing up.
So you're running a restaurant, but you don't know how to cook. Is that what I just heard?
But I remember watching how he cooked things and how
uh,
he did things. So then I would call my mom and I'd tell her, say, well, can you guide me on doing this, like cooking the rice and doing this? Because it was a Mexican type restaurant. So that's how I learned. And I kept it for a few years and finally sold it. And then I got married, moved down to Monterey, California, helped the in laws with their business. But it got to the point, but working for somebody just wasn't fit for me. And so that's when I started in the insurance business. I started with A.O. Williams back in the day. And they had a good concept and stuff, but I wasn't one of the mass type recruiters. I was more into helping people instead of just trying to sell a product.
So let's stop
And
there for just a moment. Hold on just a second. So about how old were you? About what was your age, would you say, when you got hooked up with A.O. Williams?
about 27, 28.
So it sounds like you were more or less recruited in the industry because A.L. Williams, that's what it's all about. It's what I call multi-level insurance marketing or
Well,
recruiting.
actually, I started out when a little bit before that. I don't know if you recall Dusty Baker, the coach for the Dodgers. He also played for the Dodgers, and he coached for the Giants. Well, his mother was a New York Life agent in the Sacramento area. So she tried to recruit me in, but when I had to go through the process of New York Life and how they want their traditional agents to be, it just didn't fit because they want me to fit in this box, and I just didn't feel like I could fit in that box.
So why did you try it? So the fact that you were, whether you're recruited or not, but the fact that you're like, A.L. Williams, I think I want to do that. What was it that compelled or attracted you to get your license and to give that a go?
Well, I just thought that the whole industry was a good industry because I did a little bit of homework on it. And being in the industry, I started reading stories about Ben Feldman, all the successful people that made a lot of money in the industry. So I said, well, you can't go wrong if you learn what you can. So I went through the process of getting my real estate license, my securities license, registered principal license. So I went through and got all those licenses because at the beginning, A.O. Williams was just in the insurance, and they branched off into the securities with their mutual funds. And then they brought in real estate loans. So you need a real estate license. So that's where I started, and I ended up getting all my licenses in that period of time. So it was all interesting to me by learning all these different facets of business. But the industry that A.O. Williams didn't really teach you, other than this is how you push this program and this is what they should get. But a lot of times, once you look back, it was a high priced product for what the consumers, but we didn't know much difference until we started digging in and finding out more information.
Absolutely. Now, anytime that you're looking as far as the industry and from the outside looking in, 90% of the time, what you see is this perfect picture, right? The green grass and the blue skies and the white fluffy clouds and the butterflies and the dandelions. But then the majority of people get hooked up into the wrong outfits to where it becomes what I call a fallacy, just a bunch of smoke and mirrors, no support, no training, pushing products, without the knowledge, recruiting. Again, it's what I call a multi-level insurance
Right.
marketing scheme or gig. And I don't know if you're familiar, you probably are. Marcus Lemonis. Have you ever heard of the guy named The Prophet that used to have his TV show,
Oh,
Entrepreneur?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
One of the things that I really love and respect about Marcus Lemonis is that for him, it's kind of like that three-legged stool. It all boils down to the three P's: people, product, and process. And he has to, in order for him to invest into a business that's about to go bankrupt, more or less, he's got to buy into, make sure that the owners of the business, he buys into the product, the people, and the process on how they make or manufacture, what the process of that business model really looks like. And if any one of those three legs is broken, then that's an investment he's not willing to make a commitment in. Well, in the insurance industry, it's the same thing. It's not about the people, it's not about the product, it's not about the process. More times than not, the majority of licensed agents, and I'm not exceptions to every rule, of course, but the majority that are out there, they chase this fallacy unbeknownst to them. And then when they get on the inside after getting their license, then it's about to go friends. You sell your friends, you sell your family, and sell your neighbors when they don't even have any actual product training and understanding the intricacies of the product and the programs that they're offering. They're just selling rates. They're just trying to push some life insurance. And at the end of the day, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work out well for the client, the people who buy the policy, the agent who pursued the career to help people, and of course, money driven as well. And that's the biggest, most common problem that I see continuously getting worse instead of getting better. Now, it's almost like you're reading some of my notes here because you started going into some of the other questions that I've got for you, in addition to all these other areas of expertise from taxes, securities, investments, real estate, notary, trust, retirement planning, nonprofit. That's you. So let's talk a little bit about your securities license. Why did you attain a securities license, and how often do you use it, or have you used it?
Well, I attained it because it was a requirement when you were going through the levels. Once you become a marketing director, you needed to have that license because you couldn't get to that level without getting a securities license. And then if you had agents down line, they made you get your registered principal license because they wanted to pass on the responsibility to the registered principal for the registered agents. So it's just basically funneling down the liability to everybody else instead of the company. So then when the 87, when the market corrected a little bit and all that kind of stuff, every time there's a correction, there's new regulations that makes it harder for people to stay in business, especially a registered principal, because you have to watch after all these agents. So you have to do all this stuff. So that's when I started looking into, I said, well, this isn't really for me. And when the company sold and changed names to Primerica, when they sold to Citibank, is that basically that's when I sort of stepped away and became more in the independent type scenario instead of being out there and just trying to recruit and follow everybody else and do what you're told. And that's where I started really learning a lot more because then I had no limitations on what was, and that's when I really start learning in the process of really trying to help people.
So, how long were you with A.O. Williams before you decided to go independent and really embark on your actual professional career versus the limitations you had with A.O. Williams?
Well, it probably within 2 years after the company, I just started and went full time into the business and just kept working it.
About 2 years, you say?
Yeah.
Now, you had mentioned securities license real estate in the same sentence with A.O. Williams. So, tell me a little bit more about your real estate license. Why and how did you attain that? And what have you learned from, or what do you know? Share with us a little bit more about your experience.
Well, with the
Have,
real estate license, though, we had to get that through when I was with A.O. Williams because they started bringing in the smart loans. So they were like an equity line of credit type of loan, but really a high cost compared to what they could get at the bank. But we didn't know any different at that time. It's just easy qualifying, but there's a cost to easy qualification. So that's when I got the real estate license. But then when I stepped out away from that industry and started looking at the real estate itself, I mean, I sold a few houses and this and that, but that industry is totally crazy too because it's just like a bunch of vicious hyenas out there. I've had cases when I have open houses, other agents would steal my signs and all this kind of stuff. And it was just not an industry that was very ethical. And it's an industry that very few people make a lot of money, and most of them are broke, but they have a real estate license. So to me, it wasn't worth it. So I let that go along with the securities license.
so, with that statement, don't you see some similarities from the real estate market to the financial market?
Exactly. It's all commoditized. It's just a commodity type thing, and everybody's out for the same bone.
Okay. So, California Society of Tax Consultants, I found you on that site. It appears that at one point in time you were a presenter for them. In the description, it states that Victor Mojica has been in the financial insurance business for 30 years, has held securities license 66326, aced as a registered principal, real estate license for the state of California, currently have a life and disability license in Notary Public. His practice is working with individuals and business owners to create and implement tax strategies that create great tax benefits. All of the strategies are handled by our back office, which consists of very high-end specialized attorneys and have a huge background on the current tax law. And that's really the common theme that I find whenever Victor Mojica's name pops up is tax, tax, tax. It seems like out of all these areas of expertise and all the different licenses that you have in your portfolio, the common denominator with everything is that you are defined as as a tax specialist. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And why is that? Why is
Well,
tax
yeah.
seem to be the common theme for you?
Well, within the industry, I figured out that if I can create a tax savings, it frees up money to do proper insurance type planning. So what I did is at that point I met up with a good friend of mine who was a professional trustee who did a lot of these classes for this organization. And he basically went to law school. He was thinking he was going to be an attorney, but right out of law school, he was hired by a rich family. He said, I want you to basically research all the tax laws on how we can become more tax efficient. So, and I still work with him today. In fact, I just referred a client that his parents were, his dad was an engineer at Lockheed Martin here back when the high tech industry was just beginning in Silicon Valley. So he was able to put money in a lot of ventures that became very, very valuable. So his mom died. They set the money aside with the A part of the trust, and the dad continued, but he got remarried. Well, when he died, his new wife with the two daughters thought all that money was theirs. So there was four brothers. So we were able to bring in my friend who brought in a forensic accountant, hired an attorney, and figured out they had squandered over $20 million that was supposed to go to the four brothers.
Oh, wow.
Because they thought it was all theirs. So when the forensic accountants and did everything, I tell you, this guy was happy. His mom's share was only about 2 million, but once we got with that, it was like ended up with about each brother ended up with $5.4 million more that these other family thought that was theirs. So those are the things that if you really know how to go about things, you create great value to people like that, and also in businesses, because the tax law is designed to be used. And if you use it properly, you can benefit from it. But most people don't have the fortitude, or a lot of times the attorneys or people they hire don't really know the key people that can help them and guide them to get the ultimate results in this thing. So I've been blessed with a lot of scenarios, and I saved millions and millions of dollars in people in business, estate planning, and a lot of stuff. And that's where then I redirect that in proper vehicles that they're safe, secure, and insured, and they never look back.
So two things I got from that. One is you said the tax code is designed to be used. Can you elaborate or expand a little bit on that?
Well, I learned that, like, for example, I have a tax attorney that helps businesses. He was a congressional aide back in the 90s out of Arizona. And he worked with a lot of the laws that they structure. See, a lot of these laws are designed for business owners to really take advantage of, because if they can make a business owner a lot more profitable, they can hire more people. And the system makes more money on employees than they do on the business owner. Because if you just look at, and I see this all the time. I mean, I have clients that are like elevator repairmen that make about 250,000, but out of that 250,000, they only spend 150,000. 100,000 goes away in taxes,
right,
with state, all that kind of stuff. But a business owner, if you implement and you give them incentives to continue, they hire more people, and that's where the system gets most of their money.
So as a business owner, how does a business owner find that right guy? How does a business owner find that Victor Mojica that is not just knowledgeable, but is going to look after the business owner's best interest in order to help them and put them in the best position possible? Because again, what we were just talking about is in, I think, almost any financial industry, real estate, whatever it is, more times than not, you come across a dud. People are put on this facade like, they have their, they're smart, they're knowledgeable, they're experienced, they're established, but at the end of the day, they're really not. So how does one approach that and find that guy who's going to be able to help them free up money, cut out as much taxes as possible, and scale their business?
Well, the thing what I've experienced is a lot of people, that the tax attorneys, the CPAs, and so on, they're just like really in a tunnel vision. They don't really guide people to do it because they're afraid of liability if they recommend certain things. So they stay pretty much on track. So the people I work with are very specialized in certain areas. So what we do is just try to, I mean, my referrals come from other people that I've helped, because a lot of times those same people know other people in the same industry. So I'm able to help them out. But it's really hard to find very specialized people because the masses are just looking for billable hours. And that's what I've found. So, but I tell you, I've got some of the top former IRS attorneys that now are in private practice while they were with the IRS, never lost any cases. Now they're in private practice and they support a lot of the attorneys that use certain vehicles to help business owners save money. And they basically were pretty much bulletproof. And now we have letters that say, because the IRS usually tries to scare people with certain strategies.
Mm-hmm.
So they say this is a listed transaction or certain things. Well, a lot of the people that we use already have that cleared up because they were on as a target, but once they went through the whole process, it's basically tax law, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Okay, so we're saying we use. Who is we? Is it by chance Profits USA? Is that who you're referring to?
Well, a lot of times it's myself and another friend of mine, Howard Francis, who helps us. He does all this stuff that's on the website.
Okay.
And then, as you can see, he just recently updated a lot of stuff on there. And basically, we have to get it to the point where people can feel comfortable that basically this is tax law, because a lot of times people have doubts or they have fear because when the IRS is involved, they always create that fear. But we have, like you say, for this tangible property regulations, this guy is a tax attorney out of Florida that basically has been in front of Congress with developing a lot of these rules. And basically, these rules have to be followed. If they're not followed, they could lose a lot of their depreciation that they've had taken on a lot of their equipment and stuff that they had before. So this is very an intricate thing to keep them compliant. And at the same time, it frees up a lot of money back in their pocket, all because they use the process.
So on your LinkedIn, you've got two LinkedIn profiles, and on one it shows that you're the president of Profits USA,
Mhm.
which, as you see here on your screen, this is your website. Over here, about us, you scroll down, and it tells a little bit about you guys. Which, and I see a common thing because we are going to talk about Exotech here in just a moment. But the common denominator with Exotech and Profits is AI software. So tell me a little bit about Profits USA, your role as a president. How did that come? How did that develop into a business? And tell me, what exactly is Profits USA? What do you do and how do you do it?
Well, Profits USA is a the website that we created because Howard and myself basically researched some of the best things in the industry to help business owners become more tax efficient. So Howard is the type of guy that is leaves no rocks unturned. So when he does something, he does very extensive research. And I'm basically just the guy that basically can close deals. He opens up the door, creates the systems, that I'm the one that goes and closes the deals on the structures for business owners and so on. And then out of that, then we do a lot of insurance type planning with that money.
Can you tell me, give me some examples of the type of businesses that you work with and how, when you say close, I mean, what exactly do you do for them? What does that process look like? If I'm a business owner and I'm considering your services, what does that look like for me?
Well, it's like we have a lot of machine shops. Like one of our first that we did probably 15 years ago here in Silicon Valley, a Asian individual basically put together has a company that he was profiting about $1 million a year net profit. And so we approached him and we could save him 80 to 90% of that $1 million instead of 50% of it disappearing in taxes. We came in with a strategy that put about 90% back in his pocket.
And that's 90%?
Yeah, of the gross revenue. This strategy helps them do that. And that individual, by implementing the insurance type contract and then buying real estate when it was on the downside of the market, just on the tax savings, has increased his net worth over $30 million.
Wow. So this is one of those things where they can't afford not to hire you. Because
exactly.
At the end of the day, it might be a cost, but the return on investment from you bringing you in is going to, it sounds like millions of dollars that you're able to free up. So it's one of those things where they can't afford not to hire you and use your expertise and your services.
Yeah, and then we have an electrical contractor out of Houston, Texas that we helped out. That individual had businesses in 14 southern states. Same thing. He basically implemented this thing, saved millions of dollars per year. And then he, because he was such of a creative system, that another company 4 years later just came in and bought him up for millions of dollars. So, and then we helped them on the transaction to minimize capital gains on the transaction side of the deal. So he went on every aspect of the game, put millions of dollars back in his pocket. Then when he sold, he put much more millions in his pocket.
Wow.
So we work with manufacturing companies, all kinds of different ones. As long as they're profitable, we can help them out. And out of that, it's brought up a lot of businesses because now with the tariff talks and so on, a lot of these machine shops, instead of charging say $6 for an item, that same item now is $10. So the profit margin is increased because a lot of stuff's coming back here. So the first thing he did, hey, we just bought another company and we need to implement this scenario in a much quicker way because we had talked to him in the past, but now he sees the value and we'll put millions of dollars back in his pocket just on by understanding and knowing who we are and how we go about it.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what motivates you the most, Victor? And I hear examples and you're saving millions of dollars. To me, that's, I mean, I'm almost about to put words in your mouth, but you know my mission statement. It's been my mission for many, many, many years now, which is to leave families in the best position possible. It sounds like you. I mean, that's really at the end of the day, it's about education and it's about improving whether it's an individual, a family, or a successful, profitable business to put them in the best position financially possible. Does that sound about right for you?
That is absolutely correct because I always like to continue to learn. It's not that I think I prefer to just keep busy instead of not doing anything. And being in the industry enough, I always get phone calls of strategies and so on. So helping people is in businesses is my main focus that I dedicate time to.
Beautiful thing. Man, I was so excited and I'm going to tell you a little nervous about today's show just because I didn't want to screw this one up. That I
Uh-huh.
forgot to do my pre-financial happy hour toast for the fact that I was just ready to get started. But I will let you because I am thirsty. We're doing Seagram's Escapes Spiked Rumble Punch. It's a strawberry, watermelon, and guava flavors. So we're gonna
Oh, you
give.
got a good bartender.
I mean, Walmart. It was right there, express checkout. $2.77. Yeah. So we're gonna give it. You want to join me on the salute here? What you
Sure.
got?
Well, I've just got some water,
That no,
some
you
real
got
live
vodka.
water.
Very highly distilled, filtered vodka is what you have. Salute, Mr. Victor. Here we go.
Hey,
Oh, ooh, I don't know about that. Walmart let me down on that. Let's move on here. Okay. Staying true to this website, AI software developer. As AI software developers, and this is on your website, Profit USA. Here we are. We are an AI software development company specializing in AI powered software that combines tangible property regulations, TPR, and cost segregation for CPAs, yada, yada, yada. Now let's move over here. I found you on this website, Exotech volunteer team, Victor Mojica. Victor has decades of experience, yada, yada, yada. And then when I went to frequently asked questions, I read this, and man, these are very interestingly articulated on the question and their response. What is Exotech? Exotech is a new computing architecture that brings comprehensive natural, language control to all computing devices and enables a computer to think and act as a human would. How does it work? Process the meaning of words the way people do, not just the words themselves. This word and threw me off. I had to read this sentence about 15 different times before I think I got a grasp on it. Handles actions the way that people do. And I think what that's saying is that you put in the words, but it's not just transcribing, filtering, in a more effective way, but also the actions behind those words. That's the way that I interpret it. Like, this is my favorite one. Why does software suck? Because it does things in a completely different way to the way that you do them and makes you learn it its stupid ways. And then it goes on and on and on. But the common thing between Exotech and Profit USA is AI generation. So tell me a little bit about Exotech. Tell me what your role was as a volunteer and why there's this common theme between both outfits that are AI generated.
Well, we'll go through the Exotech. Exotech is going to be revolutionize the computer industry throughout the world. Number one, it's going to be a new operating system that's not like the Microsoft or the Apple type stuff. This is stuff way beyond AI, way beyond all those things. And what the people that are involved with this basically have been around the computer industry since the 60s. So, and they have people all over the world. Right now, they're getting picked up by some of the big Saudi, Bahrain people, and they're looking. Those people are looking to fund it with about $120 billion. But they've been working on it for a few years, so quite a few years. In fact, I've only been involved with them a few years, and I've been an investor in the company, and I also have the licensing rights for Panama and Central America. So when they implement, it basically just going to go worldwide, but it translates in every language. It does everything. You talk to it, it'll respond the way that you are used to being responded. It learns from other computers. So it's an interesting type thing that even high-end technology people, when they look at how this thing works, they're blown away because when you ask the system to do something and how it reacts, it's really more human-like than it is
right
like a transaction. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I see with a lot of these questions when they ask is just because it's really an unbelievable deal, but it's going to eliminate all the cyber viruses and all that stuff because it's a subscription and nobody can really get into it. It's just a different language that's been set up to. So even with businesses, it's going to revolutionize business. Like we have companies now that they've bought the whole rights for the casino industry in the whole country of Australia. So the head CEO can actually say, I want to see this cash or this slot machine that it's at this section and find out what it's winning and how much use it's had. Same thing with gas stations. So it'll be software that will integrate with hardware unlike anything we've ever seen.
Why are computers stupid? Because today's software does things completely differently from the way people do the same things, and doing them that way is stupid.
Right. Well, no, but the thing is that basically technology has been such that they create something for you to use, and then they create a problem for you to get something else. It's just a money machine to help you solve the problem, but they want you to buy their stuff to fix the problem. All that stuff's going to be eliminated.
Nice. Nice. How do I buy some stock into Exotech? How do I?
Well, no, but it's changing. You can talk it, get involved in just people like, but it's an interesting thing that because you can learn as you go along, and then you earn stock options, and then you just pay 10% of the value, and then you can cash out all your stock options. I've already accumulated a bunch of them just by attending training meetings.
Wow, that's fascinating. Well,
but Victor, this Exotech is a lot different than what Howard has on the Profits USA website. That's very specific to a specific vertical, which is the cost segregation, the depreciation type schedules. But that's specific. Exotech is going to be very vast in everything people do on a daily basis. It'll also be a program right on the cell phones, which will change everything that's the way it is now.
You say will be. When do they estimate that to be rolled out?
Well, right now they're hiring thousands of people worldwide. And so within about a year or two, it'll start kicking in.
Right around the corner.
I bought shares at 15 cents a share. Now it's at 70, and it's supposed to go to about 120.
Holy
once
cow.
you get all the funding.
Okay. You've got your hands in just about everything financially related. So at this stage of your life and at this stage of your career, Victor, what are the things that you are primarily focused in today? It's a twofold question. Where, how, or what do you focus most of your time into these days?
Most of my time right now has been focused on getting this new venture because my previous company got bought out um, about a year ago. I was there from the beginning, and I was about the 60th first top producer in the company, and it sold for over 200 and something $1 million. But what we're creating now with the financial shield is where I'm focusing a lot more because I think we could help a lot of people make a lot of money and help a lot of people. And with the combination of the two, we're going to help a lot of people out there in the world.
Okay, give me your version, your spin on what this financial shield is.
Well, the financial shield is that we focus on that there's 5 to 6 times more chances for people to get sick instead of dying. And the industry is focusing on life insurance to basically protect people in case they die. So we focus on finding the top products in the industry that has the best living benefits so you don't have to die to accelerate the death benefit and change your life. In my experience so far, with about 4 different scenarios with living benefits, that people didn't die, but because they used the system that I provided, received a ton of money, and 100% of those people are still alive because and their illnesses have gone away. Where if they didn't have that, I've had other scenarios where people live 3 to 5 to 6 years and they go away because the stress alone, because they lose everything, ends up killing them. So to me, keeping people alive has been a great satisfaction in what I do. So building the scenario where if I can show people without having to spend much more money and have better protection, it just works out really, really well. And they're happy. And that's where I get most of my referrals.
Seems like that was one dimensional on the shield. I mean, you focused heavily on the living benefits, which I know that's probably the most important part of the 3 dimensions of the shield is the living benefits and protecting your income. And to me, protecting your income is not just protecting your greatest most valuable financial asset, which is you and your ability to earn income, but protecting the income on the way to retirement and in retirement from the market, from taxes, just protecting the income while you're generating it and while you're receiving it. But there are also other factors of the shield. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, the other part is that I started putting together about 10 years ago, and it's had great results. I show people how to make a profit out of paying their bills. So we create a banking system with a carefully designed policy
Who's
that
we?
allows. Well,
Did you?
we is I do it, but I also have agents that I train, so I also help them out. But
this is my next question, Victor. Quit being so humble. Who created this thing called the BBA that I call it TUBA, the ultimate bank account? Who created that concept, that strategy?
well, I didn't create it. The system was there, but nobody actually used it the way I set it up because I researched that the product had the ability to access the money whenever you needed it. Where a lot of companies said, well, they look at it as the buildup for retirement, and then you can start accessing the money. But when you start leveraging money in this properly designed product, people can start turning money. And if you can pay all your expenses on OPM, other people's money on a consistent basis, while your money continues to grow and never stops growing. I have a fire captain that he started, but he didn't really understand it because when I started it, we were limited on knowledge, but we learn as we go along. He sent his daughter to nursing school, his son to acting school, at this point, he's probably spent over $1 million. And the product is still producing money. He owes that money because that'll be paid off with the face amount, which now is over $2-something million. But now that he really understands it, every single dollar goes in to maximize the annual amount that he can contribute. Because I've said I've never seen anything, and now he's retired with about $300,000 of income. I said even paying taxes or whatever out of this system, He just can see it growing. And those are the people that just keep referring you more people because it's worked so well for them. The people that use it and follow your instructions never look back.
Well, so I agree but disagree. So you say I didn't create it, I just utilized the tools that were there in front of me. You were the one to figure out how it was possible, right? Um, no one else outside of your firm, Friends and Finances, and the Financial Shield knows about Tuba or how to structure it. So if the tools have already been there, why do you think you were the first one to figure it out? Not necessarily come up with the idea, but the first person to figure out how to make it possible.
Well, the number one thing I always have the client's interest, best interest, number one. So I always look at what they have. So I don't want to put them in a situation. And then I see the ability and the flexibilities of the product that, within itself. So depending on the client, I just sort of dial it in so they could really get the best value. And out of that, my persistency, people that use my system are still on the books 10 plus years. So it's something that but it's a paradigm shift the way people think because they hate that word loan, but that loan is always tax free. But if you never have to pay that loan off, or you have options depending on your situation, I always tell them call me first because if they're recycling money, but in life, certain things happen. Sometimes you get a windfall, and what do? They call you first about what should we do with this money? So then we can do an analysis of the policy. Well, let's fine tune it. Let's max this part out, and then we can reduce. No matter which way we go, of reducing the loan or increasing the premium, they're still coming out ahead much better than using any traditional type financial institutions. So I coach my clients to always call me when everything comes up, and they're all 100% happy.
Absolutely. So in a matter of like 2 to 3 minutes, for those who are not familiar as of yet to what Tuba or the Better Bank account really is, what is Tuba? What is the ultimate bank account, and how does it actually work? And keep it on a very kindergarten level for those, because we're not going to use visual aids or anything. But tell me a little bit about this strategy and how does it work?
Well, the strategy that I use, most people have credit cards, but they don't use them properly. So I teach people on how to use the credit card to use money from the bank for free. And usually it's anywhere from 30 to 40 days of free use of money. So who wouldn't want to use free use of money?
Right.
So when that bill comes, if you pay it in full, what's it cost you? Zero.
Right.
And with the credit cards today, you can get anywhere from 1 to 5% in cash back or points to do other. And
For
that's
using their money.
it's also tax-free money. I make thousands of dollars a year using this system. And what did it cost me? Zero. But when that bill comes due, where am I going to get the money? So I designed the policy that has enough money. So when the bill comes, you request the money from your policy. But because it comes as a loan from the policy, the money comes from the insurance company. They use your money, your deposit, as collateral, similar to a mortgage. They lend you money based on the equity of your house. This is the same thing. So you use the bank's money with the credit card. Now you're using the insurance company's money to allow you to pay that and pay no interest. There will be an interest charge inside your policy because the insurance companies are in for a profit, but it's a simple interest. And if you use it effectively and your account value keeps growing, it's always going to be larger than the cost of the money. But if we have strategies that are earning anywhere from 10 to 14% in an average of 20 years, that cost you 5% and you're earning, say, 10%, you're still using the spread to benefit you. And if you do this consistently, this will create incredible value down the road. And I have it on my grandkids, my kids, and so on. Whenever they need money, I teach them the concept, and I teach them every year on how it's making me money. So then they know how the system works, even though I don't charge them any interest, and I still make a profit.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
How old should one be to create their own bank? Notice I didn't say bank account, because we're calling this You Are the Bank of Westfall, the Bank of Mojica. So instead of the Bank of America, you're the bank, not a bank account. So how old should one be to create their
Well,
own bank?
a
Do you
lot of
think?
things that I talk to people when I coach them, when they have newborns in the family and so on, once set it up, and I tell them, I said, look, this is a better tool. Instead of buying toys for the kids and so on every Christmas and so on, you should have money donated that goes inside this policy. So it gets to the point where she'll have more money than she knows what to do with, instead of toys that she might play with them for a little bit and throw them out in a few years. This is a better vehicle, and a lot of people have seen great results with that because they're building the value for that child inside a policy.
Love it. Merry
Unlike
Christmas.
it's unlike that the Gerber policies, because see, once again, they advertise all this stuff with the little kids and stuff, but these policies are so expensive. When you compare what we design or what I design in dollar for dollar, it's like unbelievable. So they're making a fortune selling these little policies to these kids, and the parents think they're doing something good.
Right.
It's just that it doesn't make any
Because
sense.
it's one of those household trusted names that we've been seeing on TV for decades and decades now. And it's just, again, become a very trusted household name that people know, they're familiar with, and they trust. And they never, it almost goes back to the what are your options? And nobody looks at the road to the left. Everybody follows the herd, but they don't ever find out what is on the road to the left. One of the reasons is they have a fear of talking to guys like you and I, when our heart is to try to put them in the best position possible,
That is
and
that is
and
true.
it's not going to be through Gerber, and it's not going to be through your other traditional companies out there. Talk to somebody who can actually take what you're currently doing, restructure that to where you're going to come out 100 times ahead versus just improving a situation.
And then a lot of times people say, well, when do I have to stop funding this thing? When are you going to stop having bills?
Right.
Just if you could put the same amount of money and take it back out and it continues to grow forever, it just, the math just works so well that I'll never stop. So why would you?
The math is mathing, isn't
Yeah.
it?
And then, well, that's the good thing. Math doesn't lie. So when you sit there and look at the numbers, they're pretty impressive.
Yeah, I know what those numbers look like. Trust me, I
Oh.
know. I would like to see what your bank looks like. That's what I want to do is get my hands on your statement.
Well, hey, it just keeps growing. But I've used it for a lot of business ventures, like buying the licensing rights with the Exotech. That'll be millions of dollars a year just by implemented through all these different companies and so on. I've got a transportation company. I have a marina. I've got all these things. So I keep leveraging money from the policy to other ventures, and it just keeps working really, really well.
So we're going to go from one side. How old should one be to create their own bank, to the other side? Is there an age limit to creating your own bank?
Well, it all depends if they're healthy or not, but I've had them up to about 76 years old, but I use a different type plan so we can reduce the cost, internal cost, and I use a second to die, so it shares both ages but it only pays on the second death, the big number. But I also include a smaller amount in that type of policy because when the first one dies, there is certain expenditures, and it's always better to use the insurance company's money instead of yours.
So you mean tell me that you can structure these using two parties like a joint first to
Yes,
die?
it's called the second to die type policy,
Hmm.
which they spread the risk between the two, so it reduces the cost,
Right.
but it has the same functionality as an individual
I'll be darned,
policy.
I did not know that. I didn't know we could structure them that way. I learned something there. I learned a
Yeah.
lot today, but
Well, no. The thing is that's why you have to sort of think things out, and if you do it right, because a lot of times people when they get older, they plan wrong. They use the traditional stuff, the 401ks and all kinds of stuff. So in today's world, most of them end up paying more taxes when they get to the age of 73
yep.
because the qualified accounts triggers the required minimum distribution, which means they have to start taking money out of their retirement accounts. And each year it increases because their lifespan is lower and lower, and the government wants to get their money.
And reading Ed Sanders' book as well, usually the mortgages are paid off or almost paid off, so you don't get the interest deduction, and you don't get to write off the dependents because the kids are grown, and So there's this myth that, once you get retirement that your life simplifies, but, on quite the contrary, you've got more tax burden probably in your retirement than you did when you were working.
Yeah, and a lot of those people still, some of them still had pensions, then they have Social Security, then they have the additional investments, and they have certain things. So each time you add more money, and then when they get to 73, they're forced to take out money. It just kicks them up to a different level, which affects their Medicare premiums on their Social Security. It affects a lot of things which people don't really think about. But until you understand the whole tax scenario, they cry more in later years than when they were earning the money because they thought they were doing the right thing and they're not. It didn't work out for them.
Victor, can you believe we got 8 minutes left here? So guys who are tuning in, if you guys have a question for Victor, please go ahead and post it in the chat. Now, there was a question that was presented earlier in the month, and I'm pulling this up now. I did have it loaded and ready to go, and what happened was my screen refreshed. So, and it was a question that Nick Early presented on like Tuesday or Wednesday. Give me 30 seconds here, Victor. I apologize. And I'm going to share my screen so you can see the question, but you can also see Brian Iramay's response to that. And I want to get your thoughts on that. Here we go.
Is it supposed to pop? Oh, there it is.
Here we go. All right. So on June 9th, I said, if you could ask a financial expert with 45 years of experience who is extremely well versed in all the following, what would you ask them? What would you want to know about? Well, Nick had asked the question, what order do you handle stuff in and why? Now, before you give your response, Mr. Brian, which I think you know who he is, chimed in and he stated, well, I'm not a tax advisor, a trust attorney, an estate planner, CPA, or any fancy financial advisor. However, I do identify as a trustee, fiduciary insurance agent, real estate investor, financial strategist, and a few other things. In the spirit of understanding and based on my experience, the order would be first, establishing the proper trust structure to minimize or eliminate the tax liability for any revenue generated in the future. Second, acquire or fund the trust with the insurance concept of the financial shield on all key persons, husband, wife, kids, grandparents, trustees, to establish retirement as you make other investments, including real estate, stock, crypto, precious metals, etc. Third, make the trust the owner and beneficiary so you have complete control but do not own anything. Fourth, let the trust pay you in precious metals like gold or silver or even equity in the form of trust credits, just not in any U.S. dollars because you might become subject to a tax. All assets belong to the trust and are protected and can be passed down from the generation to generation, just like the Rothschilds, but with better financial strategy and no incest. No incest required.
No, he's absolutely correct on everything he's saying because the trust structure is one of the main principles of a lot of things. And the super wealthy have built trillions of dollars of net worth just by implementing exactly what Brian says. And I learned a lot of the stuff from Gerald Babb, who was Mr. Trust in America. You remember, I don't know, you probably don't remember back in the day when the Rockefellers with Standard Oil, the government said he had created a monopoly. So he had to break up his company. So Gerald Babb said, well, this is what we can do. We created a series of a bunch of trusts who changed ownership to a lot of the entities that were in Standard Oil. So it wasn't one big company anymore, which eliminated the antitrust scenario. And the Rockefellers still controlled everything as they were before.
I'll be darned. Well, we want to make sure that you're not a robot. And our last 5 minutes here as we close. Now I have a few fun questions for Victor. First of all, what is your favorite hobby?
Well, sometimes I don't even have enough time, but when I do, I pull out my Harley out of my garage and dust it off and then head over the mountains and into by the ocean and cruise the highways along the ocean.
So just so you all understood what he just said, he says he owns a Harley. And when he has spare time, which is very rare, he likes to hop on his hog and take it for a nice little joy spin somewhere on the coast out there in California. Beautiful California where you live.
Yeah.
What is your favorite food, cuisine, or dish?
Oh, I don't know. It's I think Mexican food because there's such a different variety.
That's what I'm talking about, Victor. Sorry
No,
about
I
that.
tell you, we live like in California. We have some of the best places. That sometimes when you go to Mexico, the food isn't even as good there, even though they have a different variety. But some of the stuff here is like really top notch.
It's called quality control.
Oh yeah.
It's called food inspectors. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
What is your favorite vacation spot?
Well, I really enjoy Panama. Panama is just an incredible. It's sort of like being in Hawaii, but without all the riffraff and stuff. The people are a lot friendlier. You have the Pacific, the Atlantic, the Caribbean, and within hour or two you could be at any location because it's a country that's 90 miles long, probably about 45 miles wide, but it's got so much variety. You want to be in the city. The skyline of Panama City is just like an unbelievable thing. They have 13 major casinos. They have the Japanese have put in three major uh, tram systems to move people. And then you could be in paradise, sit there and ask the local guy to bring you up a bucket full of lobsters and have the local people cooking for you or fresh fish. Just it's really,
You're
really nice.
making me a believer here. Matter of fact, I'm on Priceline on my other screen looking up trips to Panama as we speak. Now, real question.
Well, no,
Have
hey,
you,
we'll get there. We'll take you down there, and you can sit there, and then we'll have the local guys take you out if you like to go fishing. Some of the best fishing.
you guarantee know it?
Yeah,
I'm all about it, man.
yeah,
Absolutely. Sign me up. Have you ever been to Bermuda before?
yeah.
That's my favorite spot. I don't know what something about Bermuda. I'm a Bermuda fan. I mean, I've been all around the Caribbeans, the Grand Turks and St. Thomas and, those different islands, but they're Puerto
Yeah, I've been
Rico.
to Aruba all those times, but the problem with those places it just takes you so long to get there, and then you're only limited to a small little island.
Yeah, that's all I need. Yeah. I see my wife, she's one of those people where she's got an itinerary from the moment that you wake up bright and early till the moment you go to, I want to do this, I want to do it. When I'm on vacation, man, I don't want to do nothing. I want to go
Just
the
just
direction the
kick
wind
back
blows
and
me.
not rush anything. That's the way I am too.
Yes, sir. Last favorite fun question here. What is your favorite style of music or
Oh,
genre of music?
the 70s, rock and roll type stuff that we
Heavy
grew up
metal.
with. No, heavy metal is too much. The 70s, the rock, the classic rock. That's not the heavy metal. My son is a professional musician that traveled. But heavy metal is a total different, and that's what he
I
did.
don't know why I said heavy metal. I'm thinking of back if you think back in the 90s, that one commercial, "Hey man, is that Freedom Rock?" Yeah, man. We'll turn it up, dude. I think 70s.
Well, the old Leonard Skinner,
Yeah,
Crosby,
yeah,
Still, Nash and
yeah.
Young, the Eagles, that kind of stuff. That's all good listening music that you can enjoy sipping a good whiskey and smoking a good cigar.
All right, so we're gonna end this on the most perfect way possible. Man, I could have not timed this any better. 5 o'clock, 1 hour, perfect way to put a bow on today's show, which is I need a fan vote here.
That's
Let's
it.
see, how many people do we have on here? I need to know, do we think that Victor Mojica resembles the most interesting man in the world right here, which is the Dasakis guy? Here we go. What do you
Yeah, Dos
guys think?
Equis, man.
The Dasakis man. Jonathan Goldsmith is his actual name, but he's also known as the Dasakis man. What do you guys think? I see it. I see it.
Oh, he has a little bit more hair on top than I do.
He does,
Okay.
but
If
nothing a
he's
few little
smoking a
plugs
good
can't.
smoking a good cigar.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Victor, thank you for donating an hour of your most precious asset, your time, to me and to others who decided to join in live and watch us on the replay. And hopefully we can do it again sometime in the near future.
Well, that'd be great. But we're going to build a great partnership, and we're going to have a lot of fun, you and the family and the whole works, because you have to have a little bit of fun. It's not all work. And blending them two together will have a lot of success.
Well, that's why we ended the show on a fun note here, asking just a few fun questions. It's not all business. It doesn't all have to be all business. We can have a little
Yeah,
fun.
it's all great. But no,
Indeed.
I think we have a lot of good things, and helping people is a key because you get rewarded when you do things right for the right purpose, not just for your personal gain. So
What goes around comes around for better or for worse, correct?
absolutely.
Yes, sir. Till then, guys, we'll do it again next Friday at 4 p.m. Central Time. Till then, make it a great rest of the day. Have a super awesome weekend, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you.